Been a while since Manus Combat Retrospective, huh? Well, this is probably gonna be the last one of these, at least for the major characters. There's still other characters like To Be Damned and other factions to cover, and maybe a remake of some of these things. So if you guys want that, comment down below. And let's get into the video now. Deimos and Sanford are the protagonists of the Manus Combat series, usually appearing alongside each other. They're the most iconic duo in the Manus Combat universe, but if we want to appreciate this duo a bit more, we need to go back to the beginning of their story. Hank was tasked by Tubidam to rescue and enlist the help from the duo at the start of the story. This tells the audience of their relationship in the series, would them possibly only be co-workers, and Hank only care about them due to them being required to finish the mission he was given. Hank would later break the two out before they all escape from the grasp of the AAHW, which would mean that the Auditor might have seen the danger in the two and tasked its minions to capture them before they eventually team up with Hank. After being rescued, the duo would be sent to infiltrate the armory and cut off the Nexus weapon supplies, while Hank is required somewhere else. This seems to show how much trust Tubidam has in the two's teamwork, that he would separate Hank, the killing machine and the one he probably knows the most of, out from the duo, but this could also stem from Hank wanting to work alone, a trait that would be important later. Sanford and Deimos would show that teamwork by successfully infiltrating the armory and completed their missions. The duo would move on to disable the Nexus communication tower so that the team would have more of a chance to strike the main HQ. So we would later see how smart Deimos is with tech. It seemed that in this instant, the duo chose to destroy all the comms power inside. This might be due to how secure the comms could have been held, and thus would nullify any attempts to be breached by Deimos. They would later be tasked to go on as stealth strikes to the Nexus manpower due to their satellite blackout, disallowing them from communicating or acquiring help from somewhere else. But despite the comms tower being destroyed, there's still some engineers dispatching to a recon hut and into the new comms tower, causing the duo to follow suit. In the recon hut, we would get to see Deimos' skill with tech, with him hacking a terminal, causing the spikes to lowered. This would also play into why Tubidam seemed to trust the two almost as much as Hank, because the two are pretty much what Tubidam need that isn't present as much in Hank, with Sanford being the strong one, or as the Auditor would describe as unkillable, while still being humanly logical, unlike Hank, bloodthirstiness, and Deimos being the smart one in tech-related machinery, unlike Hank, allowing Sanford to help assist Deimos in situations where the duo could help each other, with Deimos being the strategy guy and Sanford being the brute force guy, giving protection to Deimos if he needed protection in something that requires his full attention or he lacked the capability to protect himself. After the duo destroyed the main com power of the recon hut, they would go to infiltrate a stronghold, holding the new gold MK1 units after Tubidam has intercepted a transmission and wanting the two to eliminate the new threats as soon as possible. After infiltrating the stronghold and learning about the new threats, the two would be instructed by Tubidam to hit a nearby bar that is a front for the Nexus ammunition depot. Doing this would help them getting more well equipped before going for the final assault against the Nexus HQ. The duo would also encounter Gold MK2 before also taking it down, showing more why Tubidam entrusted them in the first place. After getting all the resources they need for the final assault, the duo would be reunited with Hank and given instruction to follow Hank into the heart of the Project Nexus, taking down the HQ and learning all they can about the mysterious Nexus training program. This might show that Though Hank want to work alone, and Deimos and Sanford can already do well without Hank, Chubidam seems to prefer the trio together for their final assault, or if the mission seems too dangerous for just either of the three to go, which is logical, and seems to also be something Chubidam do often, due to us seeing more of the trio first splitting up before reuniting back to do a final mission that requires the three abilities and skills to complete. At the last stage of their assault, the trio would meet Mac Agent N and many armor-plated engineers. But the three would be able to take all of the threat present down, showing the result they can do as a trio and the threat they poses. After the trio destroying all the buildings and murdering all the engineers, it seems that the project seemed to not have any chance to be rebuilt again, and the trio's work here is done. Tubidam would instruct the trio to move on to the core of Project Nexus, in order to destroy this project once and for all for good. We continue the series by seeing the three driving a truck into the Nexus core area. While they're driving, they would get attacked by some of the AAHW agents, with Hank being the one to fight them in the back. While Sanford and Deimos are driving and giving Hank instruction and whereabouts of some of the weapons they have left in the back, showing that they have been cautious and prepared for situations like these. So, their truck would be stopped by one of the bandits. Later, we will see while Hank is sarcastically praising them for the accident, Sanford is attending to Deimos' wounds, with Deimos guiding Sanford, showing that Deimos trusted in Sanford's skill enough to follow his instruction well enough to not damage him any further, as well as Sanford's trusting in Deimos' instruction and carefully attending his friend's wounds. Hank would run off to check around the area, leaving the duo to follow him later. Later, the two would catch up with Hank, with Sanford complaining about him climbing over the wreckage, and Deimos making remarks about how well it went, possibly showing the two contrasting personality, with Sanford being more serious and Deimos being more jokey. The two would be tasked by Hank to go meet the sheriff and convince him to help them, while Hank go off to find Jeebus. The two would go on to breach through the sheriff's security, while also snooping through some infos about the project's past. And Deimos would later find a landline that's connected to the whole system, before hacking it and shutting the entire system down, allowing them to be able to sneakily hit and raid them until they're ready to infiltrate. They would later go into the boom factory, using Sanford's knowledge to know which explosive would be the most effective to break down Sheriff's Gate. The duo would meet Church and George in the boom factory, both reoccurring threats of the duo's journey into the Nexus core. The duo would easily get rid of Church and George, as stated by Deimos' comment calling them a joker, showing how effective they are as a duo, before they go on and found the explosive they needed. After acquiring the explosives, Sanford would blow up the gate to get to the sheriff. While going through the fortress, Sanford and Deimos would also come across conversation the sheriff have had with Jeebus, with notes from Tricky, when the clown was still Dr. Hofnar. They would later meet the sheriff and ask him to unlock the transit network, which the sheriff said no, due to them causing trouble in his city and close association to Hank. With Sanford doing the talking, we could see a trait that Hank and the duo share: determination, with the two determined to take down the Nexus core regardless if the sheriff wanna help or not. Might be due to them working closely together and working the same task, but this trait would also play in later into how unkillable Sanford really is, and in Deadmo's adventures. After chasing the sheriffs outside, Deimos would later make clear on what Sanford mean about doing this the hard way, by saying they're not trying to kill the sheriff and just wanting sheriff to cooperate. They would also get mistaken for being the employer's goons, marking this the first time they heard about the employers and even the auditor possibly. Later, while trying to convince the sheriff, we could also see that the two seem to split on who talking about what, with Sanford basically asking for answer and threatening him, while Deimos do the convincing and listening to the other person. Before fighting the sheriff, they would also get a hint on deeper stuff that might be going on in the Nexus core. After making it to the inner city, along with the sheriff, The sheriff would explain that there's something more dangerous going on in the science tower, even long after the death of Phobos. But not before irritating both Sanford and Deimos. Before he ran off, Sheriff would request the duo to say to Hank that he still got some bullet for him, still holding a grudge against his death on Hank's hand. Deimos would also make remarks about how odd Sheriff is after he has ran off. After making their way into the apartment of the inner city, they would later use a respirator to prevent the dirty ventilation inside the apartments to damage their lungs. Respirator that presumably Deimos have made for both of them and have used before because of Deimos' comments about have you ever missed the smells. Sanford would also later warn Deimos about the dangers and how they should pick up the pace because of the structure of the buildings, showing how both of them cares about each other very much and how long they must have worked together. We would also get to see their banters, with Deimos being very jokey and sarcastic, and Sanford trying to keep things serious and a little bit tired of Deimos' jokes, while they're fighting against enemies. After making their way through the apartment, the duo would have to make their way across the street's chasm to get back to the residential sectors. They would also encounter some Zeds, with Sanford advising they both aim for the Zed's head, showing more of Sanford battle IQs on the Zeds and some technology knowledge with him knowing about the emergency beacons. They would also come across some notes by Phobos, trying to keep the citizen quiet about Zed on the loose, saying that the Nexus core would help and punishing the citizen if they do spread stories about Zeds, enforcing how evil and controlling the projects are, and why they have to take this down as soon as possible. They would later meet Gil, another person who falls victim to the Project Nexus and turns into Zed, with Deimos being excited to meet Gil, while Sanford saying that unfortunately they would have to also kill Gil, and Deimos saying that it's probably the way Gil wanted to go, showing that they might have understand that Gil probably have no choice but to participate in the experiment, due to a possibility that he might have to go back to the street and live a miserable life due to the Project Nexus. After making their way through the street, the duo would now have to go through another Zed's infested place, which is the sewer, so they can make their way to the mining sector. The duo would later meet a bandit that goes through a mech chamber, either because of the Project Nexus wanting to experiment, or because they was tasked to get stronger. Deimos would also make a remark about the bandit, saying he will miss him before saying, never mind, he hated him. This might be due to the danger it poses as a mag, or because he got into a very serious injuries because of the bandits pushing the rock to make him crash his truck. They would later meet George and Church once again, both trying to stop the duo from proceeding, with Deimos being a little weirded out seeing these two again, before both sides engages in a rematch. After George and Church went down once more, Deimos would also make a comment saying that this time they both stay down, implying that they're still pretty easy for the duo to defeat and now it's just annoyance. Later, they would find an elevator to the mining sector. Even though Deimos is worried about the functionality about this thing, due to its worn down appearance, he would still help Sanford in trying to get the elevator working again. And this would also show the extent of Deimos' technology's capabilities, with him being able to hack an elevator that seemed to not be in use for almost 30 years to be able to work again. The duo would made it into the mining sector before realizing that the mining sector has been flooded, and now the two have to find a way to drain it and make their way to the science tower. The two, while trying to get a pump release, would also come across a note talking about the other place, marking the first time they heard about the place that it would grown to be familiar with later on, and a mention of the concept of buoyance and Zeds, who seems to be held by the people inhabiting here. They would eventually drain the flood before making their way through the hordes of Zeds. The duo would drain more floods and make their way through before meeting George and Church once more, still thinking of them as a non threat and getting even more annoyed with their frequent run ins. After defeating them and telling them to stay down for the last time, the duo would make their way to another section of the mining sector. with Sanford remarking that there's only one last pump before they can get to the science tower. It seems that their goals are getting nearer and nearer to them. They would also learn about the person who started the Zeds and the cult people they mauled through in the last section, and how the Zeds were created. The two would come across the self extractors, which Sanford wanted them to destroy, so they can have an easier time to climb the science tower. The duo would eventually meet Dr. Crackpot, a rival to Jeebus, and the person who created all the Seds, with Dr. Crackpot doing some kind of rituals or somethings against the two. The duo would later engage in a fight against Crackpot and his cult members. While fighting, they would also get frequent mentions of the other place from Crackpot, possibly him trying to directly bring people's self from the other place directly back to their own body in the living world, resulting in failures, creating the Zeds. Which we would later see that To Be Damned will find a way to make this idea work. Before Crackpot could say anything more after his defeat, Gasalt, who just got pushed down here by Hank and Jeebus, would crush them, causing the two to make a run for their life via one of the trains in the mining sector. They would eventually escape the assault by distracting it with the train, with Deimos still being confused on what it was. And now, with them making their way through this session, they only have to head to the tower. While making their way through the lowest depths of the mining sector, Sanford would mention if Deimos can hack their way through, with Deimos asking them how long have they been know each other, implying that these two probably know each other way before they were employed into To Be Damned's job. After making their way through and killing several of the Nexus core employee, the two would end up in front of an elevator that would give them access to the main science tower, with the two preparing for an upcoming attack. In the elevator, the two would start discussing about their mission, with Sanford hoping Hank would find a way to shut down the tower, before Deimos bring up that maybe they aren't getting a whole picture of the operation, with them first only knowing the Nexus core being the main place for the Grunt's cloning process. But now, after reading through the files, they hear about Self, the employers, the other place, and all the other stuff that seem to be completely unrelated to the Nexus core operation. With more stuff lining up with the sheriff's claim of more things going on than they could ever know, they both would get attacked by a ghoul, a robot at the size of around a half meg. After defeating Ghoul, the two would also meet Tricky before he mistakenly attacked the duo. After Tricky backed down, it seems that Sanford might have recognized Tricky, possibly by To Be Damned, the file in the Nexus core, or an unknown past mission Sanford might have had a run-in with Tricky. Tricky will start telling the two that if the science towers goes down, they're all gonna be dead. Before further elaborating that if the two shut down the Project Nexus, then the science tower can cycle the selves, which are kind of the souls of each Nevadians, out of the other place, which is like an afterlife for the Nevadians. Then they all gonna have a major reality overhaul and dooming everyone, which seems to be hard to find a way out if you're just a normal Nevadian. But Tricky would not reveal a way to shut down the project safely, even after Deimos asked him, with the clown leaving the two to figure it out by themselves, with all the information Tricky has given them. The duo would make their way to the Science Tower's courtyard. Seeing the tower in the distance, it's time for the two to finally complete the mission. They would later meet Hank, waiting for them in front of the tower. With Hank present, the two would warn him that ending the project might be a bad idea, but Hank doesn't care as long as the mission get completed. Jeebus would appear to say that Deimos and Sanford's worry are right, and that the project must persist even if the Nexus core got shut down, especially with Gasalt on the loose. Sanford would express confusion and ask who Jeb is. Jeb would later introduce himself to the two and explain that they can have a chance to reboot the project. The duo expressing that they have heard about him before from the names Jebadia Christoph, possibly from the Nexus files they snooped through. But the two are still unsure that if this can be done safely or not. But Jeb would also later reassure them that he would be able to help in their mission and not doom Nevada. After this, they would start the climb to the Divergence engine and destroy what's left of Phobos' damaging legacy. The three, after mauling through the Nexus core agents and the tower's guard, they would later meet Jeb at the top, who had floated up over the tower due to his presence, might alerting the people inside. And Jeb have also scouted way ahead for the three. Jeb would advise the three that them fourth would have to split up into two teams for the upcoming encounters, with Hank and Sanford going to deactivate the defense shutters, while Deimos and Kristoff free up their path, and hopefully after this they can get through the tower with little to no problems. While they were going through the floors, you could sense that the conversation with each other seemed to be more mission related or situation at hand than random banters Sanford and Deimos had, either because of them not being as close and only strictly business relationship, or because of Hank's attitude not allowing either of them to have any fun banters. You can see them being unfamiliar with each other in action when they have to wait for Kristoff and Deimos, with how seemingly Sanford is intimidated or uncomfortable by Hank when Hank asks him to make a joke and referring to him as the funny one. With Hank also seems to get the two confused, with Sanford correcting him that Deimos is more of the joke guy. The two would later get ambushed by the AHW, and we can also see a contrast between Sanford's conversation with Hank compared to with Deimos, when Sanford calling for him to quickly make their way through and clear the path for the two. When Sanford conversed with Hank, they seem to be more mission focused and not really have any fun banter between each other, while with Deimos, the two conversations seem more human and friendly. After taking care of the AHW, Hank and Sanford would encounter Gasol, with Hank being confident that they can take it, while Sanford is not as confident. But before the two sides can do anything, Gasol would be lowered down from them. Before the AHW attacks once more, with Sanford asking if Kristoff and Deimos are done finishing their side of the issue and warn them about the arrival of Gasol, with the other two responding that they are securing the means to help Sanford and Hank. When Gasol finally climbed back up, Kristoff would tell the two that their way is now clear, with Hank expressing being tired of how slow their work is, while Deimos replied back that they also got a problem of their own. The two would later made it up the elevator, before Sanford rigged up an explosive and exploded a doorway into another area, with Hank expressing that he doesn't trust Kristoff on his own with Deimos. The two would later lift the barricade before going to regroup with the other two. While Hank and Sanford go to deactivate the defenses, Kristoff and Deimos would go to tackle the tower ascension lock, which keep the tower safe from intrusion. After being attacked into a room from the Soldats due to Jeb's traitor status in the project, Jeb would express how impressive Deimos' hacking skill is when he hack a computer and summon a robot to help them get through, which could mean something coming from Jeb, who used to be the head scientist of the Project Nexus. The two would later encounter Gasol after it has terrorized through the floor. The two would be forced to run away from the Gasol and making their way through the Nexus employees and some AHW agent while running away. They would also tell Sanford that they are having problems of their own and cannot clear the path for them right now, while the other two is getting swamped by the AHW. The two would manage to trick the Gasol to fall out of the floor they're in, but in turn resulting in the Gasol falling down to Sanford and Hank to meet instead. Before Kristoff tell Deimos to move quickly or else Gasol might kill the other two. After they clear up the intrusion for Hank and Sanford, you will see Deimos being a little bit irritated from Hank's comments and attitude, before the two continues their way through the tower. Later, even though Deimos want Kristoff to tell Hank that they're still in trouble, Kristoff would decide not to, presumably because Kristoff is tired of Hank's attitude and do not want to converse any further than necessary, while Deimos, though being irritated by Hank, still wanting to inform him about their current status. After making their way through some more enemies, the two would encounter the Hive, a self-replicating Mac agent, presumably another Phobos experiment on self. The two would kill the Hive before going back to regroup with the other two.
The four would take a peek down to the town below the science tower, seeing all they have to do to get to here and some madness that is going on due to the Project Nexus, before they get going to the divergence engine and complete their mission for good. After entering, Deimos would express his relief from knowing that this mission will soon be over, while Sanford warned him that there's still some dangers left, with Kristoff agreeing. They would later meet Lamenters and Odium, two of the awful experiments that Project Nexus have done with the dissonance energy they got from the other place. After defeating them all, the four would get going into an elevator, with Deimos wanting to know why the project wanted a museum, with Kristoff saying that it's for propaganda and for resources for the project, showing the two how far Phobos has gone to cover his track and furthering his ambitions to become a god. After arriving to the next floor, the four would have to face robot ghouls, seemingly one of the last remains of them, according to Kristoff. The four would make their way to the next floor and facing four dissonance golems. After defeating them all and making it to the other elevator, Sanford would ask Kristoff on what's waiting for them at the top. Kristoff would tell them that they would have to engage the divergence engine, and after that, the Nexus core would no longer be a problem for them to deal with. After making their way through another floor and reading the notes explaining the cloning stuff happening in the core, the four would defeat another set of robots called Crush R and Push L, before making their way to another floor in the Nexus Charter, a place that was passed down to Phobos by the employers, the enigmatic group of powerful entity that oversees Nevada. This group also includes the Auditor. This place is also the resting place of Phobos, from when Christoph killed him. After calling the divergence platform, Kristoff would go with the three up top, while the other three followed him through stairs. They would soon reunited, and Kristoff would prepare to restart the project before the unexpected happened. George and Church appears once again, with a newly upgraded looks, ready to take revenge on them, especially Sanford and Deimos. But they would be caught monologuing by Gasalt and got killed by it. And Kristoff would reveal the Gasalt's true purpose, which is to consume the other place and become a god. Now, with no way for the four to evade the Gasalt fury, the fourth would have to fight it head on and attempt to inverse the defense, rendering it free to be attacked. After doing considerable amount of damage to the Gasalt, Kristoff would blast the creature out of the tower, blowing it up in the process. Or so it seems. The Gasalt would re-emerge soon after to fight the four again. After knocking it out, Kristoff would try to find a way to extract cells from the creature, but before he can do that, a familiar face would appear. Phobos. Phobos, now back, would attempt to take back the world he thinks he rightfully deserves, with Deimos and Sanford expressing that they won't allow any of Phobos' meddlings to ruin their world. After trading insults with Kristoff, Phobos would engage in a fight to get rid of them before merging with Gasalt and joining with the ranks of the employers. In the fight, Phobos would show all the abilities he has gotten from the other place, showing why he wanted to access the place to begin with. And he would later also steal the halo off Kristoff effortlessly. Phobos, nearing defeat, would try to unleash the true power he gathered from the other place onto the four, and trying to merge with Project Assault. Sanford would use an explosive to get through the creature's armor and killing the creatures once and for all, marking the end of Phobos' attempt to achieve something he could never get, and the end of Phobos' influence over the core. Kristoff would express to the other three that now after Phobos' death, the project could be rebuilt again. But before he could explain any further, Deimos would express confused on Hank's sudden decision, along with Sanford saying that Kristoff is the only one who can help them complete the mission and not dooming the world in the process. Sanford would further elaborate that this could be a win for everyone if Kristoff didn't get blown off by Hank. Hank would say that their mission is to destroy the project, showing how out of touch he is with common sense and common logic. and only wanting to do what he was asked. Further show that Dam might have recruited Sanford and Deimos for a situation similar to this. Deimos would say that even if the mission is to destroy the project, they are not getting Nevada blow up in the process, showing that though the three are on the same team, Sanford and Deimos are more human than Hank in most of the way possible. Before Hank engages into a fight with the two, Hank would say that he would have hoped it would have come to this, contrasting with the two not wanting to fight Hank, showing the two sides widely different thoughts, with the duo wanting them to all work together and find the best outcome to everyone in the process, hence them agreeing to Kristoff's solution in not dooming Nevada in the process of completing the mission. While Hank doesn't care about that, only violence have meaning to him, and he was hoping to find more of it. After Hank was defeated by the duo, the two would discuss what to do with the project after this, expressing that they might get into trouble after killing Hank from both Chibidam and Hank himself. But at least the war is still going on, and that's a win for them at the end of the mission. Sanford and Deimos appear briefly when Hank was knocked out from the pit by Tricky, giving his weapon before getting crushed by a building. This shows that after Hank was revived by To Be Damned, the duo was ordered to help and keep an eye on Hank, leading to them locating Hank and goes to save him. And they seem to be somewhat in a rush to try and protect Hank from Tricky's wrath, due to them not having many weapons on them, and Sanford, the person who is the bravest of the two, seems to be panicking, pointing at Tricky after they gave Hank his weapon. They would explain why they immediately rushes their car back and falling victim to the falling building, caused by the improbability drive, because they might just driving back to their base to gather more weapons to help Hank later, due to how unprepared they are and how dangerous Tricky is. Flashing back a moment before they arrived at Hank's location, they would be seen in possibly their camp, locating Hank, with Sanford giving Deimos a cigarette, showing that the two are still best friends and didn't have any falling off from the time between Nexus 2 and present time. After the duo got crushed by a building, the two would somehow survive. For Sanford, this is reasonable due to his yet unrevealed unkillable nature, and this seems to be backed up by Sanford having the most damage dealt to his head after the crush. While for Deimos, this seemed to just be a miracle or maybe an intervention by a higher power, with his damage being significantly more minute than Sanford's. After waking up, the duo would start to make their way through the building, with Deimos being the lead first, due to Sanford needing to recover from his more severe damages. We would see their fighting style in action, with first Deimos being more defensive and try to strategize before the opponent tried to strike him. But when Sanford got his bandages and took over the fight, he's a lot more fluid and prepared to go into the offense more than Deimos, showing that Sanford is more of the front line and offensive, while Deimos is in the back line and defensive slash supporting the team, but can be a front line depending on the circumstances. With Sanford recovered and fighting more bandages for Deimos, the two would make their way through the room, and landing a duo attack by using Sanford's force to launch Deimos up and slice the enemy from behind on the way up, showing even more of their teamwork as a duo. Sanford would later also acquire his trademark bandana before the two start to see the walls glitching into red, which would later be revealed as Tricky's doing, with Tricky pointing at the two before attacking, signifying that Tricky might have recognized the two from when he attacked them in Project Nexus. After getting kicked out by Tricky, the two would end up outside the building, with AAHW agents trying to attack them. After Sanford wakes up Deimos from his fake dead sleeping, the duo would slaughter all the agents coming for them, and having a banter, presumably complimenting or making jokes to each other, before seeing another building falling right behind them and going inside it. The two would kill the three agents at the window before seeing a train coming,
with Deimos trying to somehow stop the train by shooting at it. But the train wouldn't stop and crashes through the building. The two would luckily avoid the train, but an unexpected person would show up. After dodging the train, Sanford would be shot by an engineer coming out. Though not lethal, Sanford is heavily injured and needed Deimos to be the main lead and protect him for a little bit, which Deimos has no problem of doing due to his combat capabilities and strategic mind, which is also why they work so well together, due to both being a pretty amazing fighters while also having traits that complement each other, whether it's from their skills or their personality. After making their way through some agents and engineer, Deimos would check if Sanford is okay enough for the upcoming room, with Sanford nodding to Deimos signifying that he's fine, showing the care Deimos has for his friends and how he trusted Sanford's own capabilities due to him trusting Sanford's word and not questioning about it even though he's hurt. They both would later find some bandages, with Sanford bandaging himself up and taking an adrenaline shot. They would make their way through some more AAHW agents and finding some utility belts. After making short work of the improved agent and the recent addition of engineers, the two would go into the rift to buy some clothes and goofing off in the shop as a way for themselves to relax and enjoy each other's company in the process. But it's not long before the AAHW members busted in, using an explosive, forcing them to kill the members and make their way out of there. The two would later get into a helicopter, with Deimos piloting it. The two would fly off to possibly meet To Be Damned or get their supplies for the next mission. We would see the duo making their way through a AAHW building, with Sanford now wielding his trusty hook from Manus Project Nexus once more, after he doesn't has it while driving to go help Hank in depredation. While making their way through the building, we would see more of Deimos' smoking habits, which he would demonstrate after seeing that Sanford got the situation under control. We would also be shown more of their contrasted personality in this episode, with Deimos seemingly to be more relaxed while making his way through the AAHW members, contrasting with Sanford staying alert for any attacks from the enemy. This could be from Sanford's more serious nature than Deimos, or could also be from Sanford fearing that he would get a surprise attack again, like with the engineer. This would show when they were making their way through the gates. They would see a flashbang thrown by one of the soldads. Sanford would instantly register the danger of it and covering his eyes, while Deimos is too relaxed to see what it is in front of him, causing him to go blind for a little bit. Luckily, he would narrowly survive death from the soldiers shooting at him, before Sanford made quick work of both of them. This would cause Deimos to be more alerted than before, and he would not smoke a cigarette for a little bit. They would make their way to the ATP Soldat machine and destroy it. Seeing that their mission here is done, the two would make their way out of the room, and Deimos would light up his cigarette once more, before seeing that Hank has been terminated. We will see the two driving to Hank's death place to find his body and bring him back to revive him, showing that though Hank has betrayed them last time when the three were on a mission, they would willingly put that aside in favor for fighting the upcoming threat slash mission, as they also have probably been ordered by To Be Damned too. While driving, the two would be attacked by the AAHW once more, with the two jumping on one of the trucks that carries the engineers. This would demonstrate how capable they are at combat and strategy, as they were able to react fast enough to jumping out of their flaming vehicle, jumping on the truck and withstand the air resistance caused by the truck, whilst also flawlessly dodging the AAHW agent's shot, with Sanford demonstrating his strength with him being able to knock out three engineers while grappling one with his hook. As Deimos smoked his cigarette, he would make his way into the driver's seat of the truck, killing the driver after kicking them in the head. He would later see on his PDA that the primary improbability drive has been terminated, and normality restoration is beginning, before seeing a lightning strike right next to them, signifying Jeb's final moments and unbeknownst to them, the upcoming threat of the Auditor. The two would make their way to Hank's body, telling To Be Damned that they have found him before bringing his body back for revival.
After making their way through some AHW members, Deimos would decide to pull a lighthearted prank on Sanford, as he always do, showing how tight their friendship is. Judging by Sanford's reaction of more of a mere annoyance, with Deimos being comfortable enough with Sanford to do this and know that Sanford would not accidentally shoot him or being too mad at him. While Sanford just wants Deimos to take this mission seriously, but doesn't care enough about the prank and brushes off as Deimos' usual shenanigans. The two would make their way through more AHW members before being confronted by the two Auditor upgraded engineers. Not knowing their full capabilities and not having enough weapons at their disposal, the two would retreat to separate ways, with Sanford running to get the guns, while Deimos running to get Hank into the Mac chamber. The two engineers would follow Sanford before splitting off, with one following Sanford, while one trying to caught Deimos in a surprise attack. Later, we would see Deimos putting Hank into the chamber and use the machine to try and turn Hank into a Mac. But while distracted, he would not hear the sound of the door opening behind him and be shot in the neck, ending his life almost instantly. So, his death wasn't in vain, as he was able to at least transform Hank into a half Mac. Back to Sanford, he would prove to be not capable enough to take the two engineers on alone, and would get injured in the process. Luckily, the two engineers left the room, allowing Sanford to get out of his cover. Sanford would walk out annoyed at being overpowered by these upgraded engineers before changing his expression to shock in mere seconds, seeing that his friend's corpse are lying on the floor in front of him. But before he could express any more emotion or thoughts on it, he would be attacked by the Auditor and backed into a corner, before seeing the Auditor absorbing all the nearby lifeless body around and growing bigger, but not Deimos. This could be because the Auditor not wanting to absorb anyone from Hank's side, but now the battle between a god and the Nevadians have truly begun. Sanford and Hank would engage us into a fight against the Auditor, but would quickly realize that the bullets are worthless against it, due to the Auditor's physical state. Sanford would later think of a plan by rejecting the Auditor's own gun and having it focus on him instead, allowing Hank enough time to recover from the blow to his crustacean's arm and grab the Auditor's halo. Noticing that more agents are arriving to assist the Auditor, Sanford would go and clear them up, so they wouldn't interfere with Hank's fight against the Auditor. Seeing that Hank's new electrical power might be the best shot they have against the Auditor, Sanford grabs a gun ready to fight before the Auditor pillars itself up and retreating. After seeing that his bullet can't do any big injuries to the enhanced agent and the Auditor, Sanford would seem to leave these things to Hank's hand, while also assist him in clearing other weaker grunts. Later, a scene would show their relationship more, with though Hank has betrayed him and being an overall asshole in the time they worked back together in Project Nexus, he doesn't seem to hold any animosity towards him, and willing enough to play a rock paper scissors game to see who would go into the pillar hole first. After they made their way into the pillar, we would see more of Sanford's adjusted strategies of looking out for Hank, if in an event of a surprise attack from behind or thinning out the agents in front of him, if Hank isn't fast enough to finish them in quick succession due to his improved size. We would also see Sanford trying to make Hank stay behind in a path with two Spike's door contraption, due to presumably Hank's massive size possibly getting in the way and might get hit from the spike in the process. Or his strategy of just being a fast and effective killing machine might also get him hit with a spike. So Hank would bust right through it anyway, and would show their co-ops a little bit more, with Hank catching the recently enhanced agent with the spike door, allowing Sanford to kill it with ease. The two would later face against a Mach 4 agent, which Sanford give the fight to Hank, due to Sanford's average body size and not wanting to get in the way of Hank. Seeing that the mag is overpowering Hank, Sanford would try to help by firing shots into the mag, and before hooking it to try and pull it back. But this would result in his hook getting cut by an engineer, rendering it unusable. After that, Sanford would walk back after seeing Hank getting his advantage back, but also grabbing a gun in the process, in case of the situation turns against their favors. Before seeing Hank use his new electrical powers to enhance his punch and three shots the Mac agent. Sanford would help Hank to get a gun before they both advances to the rooftop, with Hank making quick works of the agents that were there on the rooftop with his new gun. With the auditor punching Sanford out of the way, Sanford would seem to stay away as far as he can, but also still somewhat near the auditor, due to the auditor's shape-shifting state not wanting to get injured by the auditor and Hank's electricity, seemingly being the only thing that can effectively hurt the auditor. But the auditor would accidentally absorb Tricky, causing its body to go haywire. But the auditor would accidentally absorb Tricky's body, causing its body to go haywire. With Sanford still processing what is happening, Hank would grab Sanford and climb down from the rooftop, preventing Sanford from getting exploded, showing that Hank seemed to value Sanford enough to save his life, either for the mission or for caring about his safety. But before we going into expurgation, let's see how our good friend Deimos is doing. We would see Deimos running away from the Soldat in some sort of purgatory, with him now bearing a spot where he got fatally shot. Judging from the Soldats chasing him, they might be trying to prevent him from escaping and get help from To Be Damned, like what they did with Hank. After clearing him out, for now, Deimos would utilize the lever near him to escape into the hole, but he would miss it and fall down. Deimos would be plummeted into the ground before being brought into a replica world of Madness Combat 3 by the chain. Now his wound is spread and took away his jaw. Deimos would also be brought through a hole after a grunge has been pushed into it. Deimos would kill some members while making his way through the room and also walking past a sign called "Everything of Value is Gone and Here You Are," showing more of the hopeless nature of finding an escape in this purgatory world. After walking out of the bakery and killing even more agents, Deimos would meet with a body of Hank from Manus Combat 3. After touching the body, Deimos would be flashed with Hank's memories from Manus Combat 3 before being plummeted into the ground and stabbed by the chains in the process. This sequence of events might be him going through Hank's memories of MC3, the man he's trying to revive, with Hank's Manus Combat 3 appearance being the first to show him being revived in the series. It probably to show that Hank has been successfully revived thanks to Deimos' efforts, but also at a cost of Deimos' own life, as shown with the chains impaling him, showing that his sacrifice did not happen for nothing. After being dragged out from a hole by a chain, Deimos would arrive in a room with one of the posters saying, "Remember, you've been here before," referencing the flyer title of Anamnesis, which is the remembering or rediscovering something from a previous existence or within oneself. This is also the Flash's main theme, with Deimos seeing Sanford coming out into the other rooms before being killed by a Soldat, with Deimos only shortly killing it after Sanford has died. Deimos would be rewound back time before Sanford had been killed. Deimos would have to go through into another room and arrive at the room Sanford has died in again. Deimos would first try to warn Sanford to not pull the lever, before he has to finish off the Soldat himself. But Sanford would start acting strange, before he falls lifeless onto a crack, and Deimos would later be dragged by a chain into being crushed by a falling ceiling. This flare might be showing us Deimos' mindset of wanting to protect his friends, even if he doesn't show much of it in the series, with him being rewind back time to protect Sanford, being scared of an upcoming danger that his friend might not have recognized, showing by him trying to warn Sanford and acting worried for him. And the last sequence might be him recognizing that now that he's dead, he cannot do anything but watch his friend goes on without him. Deimos would be released from the ceiling that crushes him before being dragged down. After pulling a lever and arriving onto a platform, not long after, he would get stabbed by an arm that is similar to Max Hank's arm. This seems to be the same arms that tried to reach Hank when 2BDM lost contact with him in MC 9.5. Before Deimos got thrown into an outline that says, "Was there a door here? I do not remember." This scene seems to be mimicking how Deimos was caught by a surprise attack from an engineer, costing his life because he's too distracted to hear the door opening, and might also reference how his lifeless body was used as a bait against the very engineer that killed him by Hank. After being brought through by the arm, he would appear to be more disfigured, seemingly to be like the injuries he sustained when he was used as a bait. After waking up, and before being finished by an engineer, the engineer would be killed by a wall growing out of the floor after Deimos smashed his face into the floor, which possibly might be a foreshadowing to his eventual resurrection and new rock-like appearance and abilities. Deimos will later kill an engineer that becomes himself wearing an engineer mask. Before out comes an enhanced engineer, after the arm tried to drag him down somewhere. This might be a reference to how playful slash unserious Deimos is before being killed in MC9, with the dead normal engineer resembling his appearance when he played a prank on Sanford. He would later kill the enhanced engineer before being embedded into the wall, possibly showing that he's powerless against this world. Deimos, after being brought into a room by the wall that was presumably created by the crustacean's arm, he would later get a notification on his M-5.1, possibly from either Tubidam or his associates, trying to revive Deimos. After being ejected, a Shane would appear to try and drag Deimos further down the purgatory, before he would be infused with rocks onto the parts he lost due to his injuries, from both corpse's form and normal form. It seems that Tubidam's attempt to reach Deimos with the sectors, which is what he would later do to resurrect Sanford in MC12, were proved to be failures, as shown in the first flare. So Tubidam might have possibly utilized the rocks in the other place to infuse Deimos with, so he can't escape the place by himself well enough. As indicated by the numbers in Deimos PDA, which translated to, you have to go back. You can't stay. Be as violent as he. You have to go back. Go back and fix this. You can't stay. With the quote like, be as violent as he and go back and fix this, might have been referencing to Deimos needing to go back to face the AAHW members once more, instead of trying to escape them into deeper parts of the purgatory, like in Chase, and be as violent as presumably Hank to escape the other place and his own purgatory, like how Hank did in MC 9.5. After being infused with rocks, Damon would find himself in a room with several half-mech grunts, which helped to utilize his new improved physical capabilities and new rock powers. After making his way through several half-mech AAHW members and dodging the chain, Deimos would later meet a grunt named Fellow '09, who seems to be working with 2BDAM, and the two grunts from Chase, due to him being near and seems to utilize the staff thingy that the two grunts and 2BDAM uses. '09 would ask Deimos to stay still before using a device on him. This interaction seems to be where Deimos differentiates from Hank's case, due to 2BDAM trusting Deimos enough to not hurt the grunt before they can help him get out. Unlike Hank, who is a murderous killing machine. This would also be reinforced by 2BDAM conversation with '09, on him being right on Deimos being compliant, before calling 2BDAM to '09 sector to anchor Deimos back to Nevada. Waking up and confused, Damon would accidentally turn '09 into an enemy by half magnifying him and making him hostile, showing that he still cannot fully control his new powers. Deimos would be forced to kill '09 before dodging a chain that might have been to be Dam's anchor due to it not resembling the previous chain that has a sharp head. And Deimos would meet some kind of spikes in the walls that seem to have the same effects that the retainers have in 9.5, which would later brought Deimos into another rooms, full of half-mech grunts and agents. After clearing them out and dodging another anchor chain, Deimos would enter another room, which an anchor thing would appear in front of him, before ramming into him, causing him to go ouch. We would cut back to Nevada, which we are shown that 2BDAM has gotten Deimos' body during abrogation, and now has anchored Deimos. 2BDAM would successfully brought Deimos back to Nevada, and thus resurrected him, and injected him with a syringe, before they both would see three half-mech agents and a half-mech soldat also coming out of the walls, which seemed to be caused by Deimos' resurrection and their meddlings with the nature of the other place that might be causing the two worlds to start merging, thus allowing some of the residents to jump out into Nevada. Before the two can do anything else, it seemed that they both have to get rid of these things first. Now, let's go back to Sanford. We continue after Hank grabs Sanford out of the auditor's explosion radius and down from the rooftop. Before they were rushed in by the skeleton minions from a newly formed Tricky, which would make this the second time Sanford has directly confronted Tricky since all the way back in Project Nexus 2. He would be seen preparing to shoot the freshly revived Tricky before being blasted in the ears by Tricky screaming Hank's name. Sanford would later be attacked by tricky skeleton minions, and the smaller ones would prove to be troublesome for him, due to their small size, easily dodging his bullets, and them overpowering his own force. He would eventually be defeated by them, before being transported to the other place, with the same effects as when Deimos was teleporting through his own purgatory in the other place. It would seem that Sanford also takes a significant damage from the fight too, seeing how he holds his torso during his first fight with Tricky in the other place, and how he seems to be more cautious to approach Tricky when not equipped with a weapon. After clearing some agents summoned by Tricky, he and Hank would get separated by the Auditor. Sanford would end up in some place filled with AAHW agents, with posters plastering on the wall, signifying Tricky's unwelcome presence in the other place. Sanford wounds also now have turned black, similar to the Grunt's black wounds in MC 9.5 and Deimos gray out spots in Deadmos Adventure. Sanford would eventually have weapons emerges out of his own body, just in time to clear the agents that are coming after him. After clearing them out, Sanford would make his way through the area before seeing a weird dark gray spot in the corner of the building, which he also makes sure that nobody would do a surprise attack on him while inspecting this, before Tricky emerges from the spot, who Sanford immediately started firing at, possibly to prevent the possibility of the clown doing any more significant damage onto him. But the building would soon be ripped apart, and dropping Sanford into the deeper area of the other place. After being dropped into a replica building and getting out of the hole, he would be attacked by tricky skeleton minions, where they proved to not be much problems, after Sanford have acquired some weapons, showing more of his impressive combat skills and unkillableness. After killing them, Sanford would be chased out into the other area by the Auditor Spike, and quickly met more tricky skeleton minions. Sanford would see Tricky on the end of the platform and instantly stab Tricky in the head, before trying to get the halo from Tricky to try and depower him for a bit, like how they did with the Auditor in MC10 for a brief second. But Tricky would fly away before he could do that. Tricky would proceed to come back for Sanford before summoning more minions for him to fight and even provide Sanford some weapons. But he would seem to ignore slash not acknowledge them, possibly because Tricky untrustworthiness, but Sanford would still be knocked to another platform by Tricky, injuring him even more, which is conveyed by his expression. Sanford would later see a barrier in the sky, being possibly their only way out, after a series of rocks got dragged on top of a building-like wall behind him. But before he could think of a plan, Tricky would start firing massive amounts of bullets to him. But luckily, Hank is now back, and diverted Tricky's attention away from Sanford, allowing him to take a breather for a little bit, before Hank is also knocked into the rocks behind him. After the two have reunited a bit, Tricky would flip the trajectory of their platform, making them to now see the barrier being right in front of them instead of above. We could see in these sequences of how injured Sanford is, with how he dodges the massive rock that Tricky pushes on top of them, and him staying in the back line for Hank to take the lead, which speaks to how durable he is. With how much he has injured, he still keeps fighting. After making their way to the barrier, Hank would take down the mech skeleton and shatter the barrier in the process by stabbing Tricky in the face and into the barrier, which killed Tricky and ending his short reign over the entire reality, but also at the cost of both of their lives. With this episode being titled Contravention, a breaking of law or a rule, which can be assumed to refer to either To Be Damned constantly bringing the three back to life, causing the two worlds to converge, or Sanford being the unkillable one out of the three, defying the expectation of the Auditor. We will see Sanford being held up by a chain before being released after the chain failed to pull him through the hole, possibly trying to bring him to his own purgatory, similar to Deimos. But Sanford would manage to escape and meet several AAHW members down below, including a half-mech agent that bear a resemblance to the one that attacked Deimos and To Be Damned at the end of Deadmos Rebuild.
After killing them in the first room, he would make his way into the next, but he would eventually be thrown off a ledge by one of the half-mech agent. Back in Nevada, we would see the Auditor trying to do something to Sanford's body, possibly trying to turn him into his minions, due to the effect he used are similar to the one creating the enhanced engineer and agent. But the Auditor would fail to do so, before Sanford's body got brought underground to Tubidam sector for revival. After being thrown off the ledge onto a platform and killing some more agents, Sanford would feel the effects from the Auditor before being freed from it. But the Auditor would still try to pursue Sanford by projecting himself into the other place and redirecting Sanford towards him. We would later see in this scene that the Auditor might be trying to use violence in Sanford to take control of him, but is only getting errors from the attempts. We would cut to Deimos driving to the sector that Sanford's body is being transported to, with Chubidam installing recovery protocol on his tablet. So Deimos would be able to revive Sanford with not much trouble, but also advised to be careful, because they might be anticipated by the opposing party, before telling him about Hank going missing after his death in expurgation. Deimos wouldn't react to the update much, before lighting his cigarette, possibly thinking that Hank would be back in no time, due to Hank's own nature, and that he would be getting Sanford in and out of there safely without trouble. Sanford would make his way through more AAHW agents, before meeting two half-Mac agents. After seeing the two ripping an engineer in half, Sanford would try to defend himself against the two half-mag. But after hooking his newly obtained hook to one of the half-mags, Sanford would be pulled between the two, before they started to try to ripping him in half, and gouging his eyes. But a message would appear telling Sanford to kill him, giving Sanford enough force to break himself free before killing one of the half-max barehanded and going into a bullet time. A feat that implies the character are going pretty fast that it slows down the surroundings, which only Hanks has been shown to be able to consistently use it, along with the text like crush, kill, and destroy, presumably saying that Sanford's violence levels are now almost comparable to Hank's regular state. Sanford would later be successfully anchored just in time before the Auditor arrived, but the Auditor would shortly after get crushed by the rocks, similar to the ones that Deimos can now use. Sanford would make his way into the next room before meeting an anchor thing, which shortly rammed itself into him, making him utter the same word as Deimos, which is ouch. After driving for a little bit, Deimos would arrive at where he needs to be to revive Sanford. He would open his tablet to see what Chibidam is saying before being informed that Sanford has now been successfully anchored after Chibidam gave him enough time to somewhat refresh himself in the other place, and that the Auditor might be moving, so Deimos needs to be hurried. Deimos would utilize the tool necessary for the process from the nearby toolbox to bring Sanford back to his dead body in Nevada, grabbing his hand to pull him out of the ground and reuniting the duo again once more. Before we got greeted with a recovery screen, telling that Deimos has now been compensated with the rocks, as we've seen, and Sanford has survived and been recovered before errors wiped the screen when Hank's image appeared, showing that both the Auditor and Chubidam actions are causing the two worlds converge and possibly dooming Nevada forever. Throughout the series, it has been made really clear how tight the two is as a duo and as a friend. The two would banter and assist each other everywhere they can with each other. Their relationship is something that we haven't seen in Mana's combat universe before. With Hank and To Be Damned, their relationship is more work focused than actual friendship. And with Tricky and Jeebus, the two don't have much to build on the relationship before Tricky become the insane clown we know him as now. This is why their relationship feels very special and satisfying to see the two reunite. As individuals, Sanford is the bronze of the two. He's the one to kill things and break stuff up. While Deimos, though, also kill things, is more on the brain side, with him working on tech and hacking stuff for the two, which these two traits would complement each other very well in their journey together, making them a perfect team to be sent on a mission by To Be Damned. And it's also shown that among all of these madness, there's still true friendship to be found in this universe of madness combat. Hello guys, it's me Asleep from the video you just watched. So yeah, this is probably gonna be the last retrospective video of Man's Combat I do for a long time. So I would cover like the other factions or maybe a minor characters or characters that haven't appeared much in the series and in the game like to be damned. So comment down below if you want that soon. But yeah, after this video, I'm probably gonna do a retrospective of something else, or maybe just upload some gameplays or reviews before moving on to another retrospective thing, and probably moving back to Madness Combat retrospective. But yeah, thanks for watching this gigantic video of 1 hour. This video is it took me a very long time to make, not because it's hard or it's because of project file, it's just because I have schools and a lot of stuff. But yeah, I'm happy to finish this project and hope you guys enjoy the video. Comment down below for your feedback or anything you want to talk about, and join my membership, I guess, if you want to support me, because there's a very good chance that the music I used in the video might get copyrighted and, you know, not make any profit off this 1 hour video. So yeah, join my membership to support me. Anyway, have a good day, have a good year, because it's almost 2026 already. Can't believe that. So yeah, see you guys later. Soon, I guess. Hopefully.